Hi. So this is a video that I wanted to make a little while ago, but I just didn't have the space to really just process everything. But this is more so, I think the point of this video is to hammer home that no matter when it was or who it was by, that if you were traumatized by someone, if someone brought trauma into your life, if you experienced trauma at the hands of another person, I don't think there's ever a time where it's wrong to be discussing that, and I don't think that there's any time limit for when you can be processing trauma. And I feel like, unfortunately, because of ahistorical bullshit and the ways that people process trauma or are taught not to process trauma, that contributes to our culture of silence and our culture of just propriety, respectability. And I feel like I want to share this because it was something that happened to me and something that I spoke my truth at a time that made sense for me, but because of white supremacy, my timeline doesn't matter. My processing and the ways in which I needed time to heal and process and grow wasn't taken into account, and I feel like it's something that in ways I think a lot of people can relate to, but I think at the same time a lot of people perhaps could be shaming themselves about not talking about a certain situation. So when I was 17, I was young. I was really young. I don't want to say I was 17 though. I want to say perhaps I was 19. And it was about to be my 20th birthday, to be quite honest. And I believe so, yeah. I was 19. I had a friend. Her name was Victoria. And her and I became close because of her mother. I actually, when I was living in Boston, I saw this older white lady carrying a bunch of shit into the dorm room, or rather into the dorm itself, and I asked her if she needed help. And when I did that, she was, obviously talking about her daughter, giving me a bunch of stuff. And the funny thing was, the person who turned out to be her daughter was someone that I already felt like I did not like, because I felt like she had made comments in class that I felt like were just so disruptive and obnoxious. So it was kind of awkward when I actually met her, having moved her whole room into her room, because I was like, ooh, I don't know if I really like you. After a couple of weeks, though, we became friends, and, her mom was always the direct link between us. And I thought her mother, Cheryl, was hilarious, and I thought she was sweet, and I just thought she was interesting. She was the first woman she was the first woman that I had ever met that had told me a story about how she hit a deer, ran home, got a knife, and then cut that bitch up and just have food for 2 years or some shit with her family. That shit blew my mind. I'm not gonna lie, and just to give some context, I was like a young ass lost ass light skin. Let me just tell you, I was lost, y'all. I was lost. So obviously, at that point in time, it was fascinating to me because I think, when we don't have language around, blackness, when we don't have language around Politico, when we don't have language to give us understanding, we'll be sitting there oh, yeah, I'm a befriend a 47-year-old white woman who's telling me that she's handy with a knife and knows how to, shank up a fucking moose. You know what I mean? At this point now, hell no. At this point now, I'm kind of like, girl, your knife skills too good for me. You up here with the knife skills. I gotta nah. No, thank you. But at the time, I was so fascinated with her mom. I was kind of just like, oh, I'll be your friend. You know what I mean? It's worth being your friend. Your mom's cool as fuck. And from there, our friendship became more and more real. I felt like we had a lot of fun times, and it wasn't until she invited me to her house was when I really felt like shit was left. And this is not even to exclude the fact that while we were friends, she was dating a black man and was just saying the wildest things. And keep in mind, I had been to her house by the time she had been engaged with this black man. So when she starts telling me things like, oh, I can bring Dave home, but it's gonna be like, bringing home a giraffe. It's just gonna be different. I just immediately remember just feeling kind of strange about it, but not internalizing it. And I feel like in ways that's part of my mixed ass, tragic ass, light skin ass just othering ass, token ass feels was that, ooh, this black man can't be up in the house because, you know, I'm over here thinking about it in the most sexual, gendered way. Like, oh, this black man and he, like, this white man don't want to see the black man that's fucking his daughter and being with his daughter and shit because he's racist. But not really thinking about it as if I don't think I ever thought to myself, these are some racist ass white people. I just was like, it was normalized to me why a white man wouldn't want a black man to come home with their white daughter. And in that moment, you know, I really was just like, it ain't me. And I feel like that's some more light-skinned shit. That's some more Raven-Symoné type shit. But when I actually went to her home for the first time, I remember it was kind of awkward because her house was a barn that they had turned into a house. So the whole layout was kind of strange because obviously they had to build the upstairs after everything. Like, they built the upstairs afterwards, after the building had already existed. So the upstairs was a little bit tight. And so when I first go into the house, I immediately recognize this reggae tam, which some of y'all might not know what reggae tam is. It's, you know, that rainbow ass hat with the locks attached to it. Well, a tam is a hat, but the rainbow tam is like that rainbow Rasta hat. But it had like some fake braids. It had some yucky braids inside of it with some gold crowns on the bottom. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, I was just not sure. But I was just kind of like, what in the I was like, what in the Rick James hell is this? And of course, at that time, that was not my response. When I saw it, I thought it was funny. I thought it was interesting. But when her mom asked me to put it on or asked me if I wanted to wear it, I was like, I'm good. Because I feel like no matter what, no matter how unaware you are of black politico, of autonomy as a black person, of blackness, of white supremacy, no matter where you are, I think everybody who is a person of color does have a line where you're like, this is racist, you know what I mean? So my line was wearing the hat, but my line wasn't the fact that they even own the hat, the fact that they asking me to wear the hat, but I was like, me wearing this hat would not be the business. This would be some racist ass shit if I wore this hat in these white people's house. I was like, that's racist shit. As I continue to scan around the kitchen, I'm just seeing, you know, a bunch of mammy figurines. I'm seeing some magnets on the fridge that have just a lot of racist ass connotations. And it wasn't until I go to the bathroom to kind of text a friend that I noticed I saw inside the bathroom a picture of a black man that said, Uncle Remus's rice, this show am good. And I was like, what the fuck? And I started sending the pictures to my friend Muhammad, and he was like, girl, you ain't safe. You know, he was just like, girl, like, don't go to sleep. Don't go to sleep. And I was laughing. I thought it was funny. And I think, again, pre-understanding white supremacy, I'm over here kikiing with my black friend, like, look at these white folk. Look at how they living. They got all these Jim Crow ass posters. What the fuck? I wasn't angry. I was tickled. I thought it was hilarious. And I think that in ways perhaps like that is another coping mechanism of perhaps being a light-skinned person involved with a white person, and embodying some sort of mixed politics, where I can be a black person in a room full of white folk and not find fault with some shit, you know what I mean? And not find, and feeling othering myself because of that ability, which was really just like a coping mechanism for white supremacy, which is pervasive as fuck. But obviously you don't have this kind of language when you're 19 and shit. So after that, we went upstairs, and I remember there was a picture in their room, and it was these two black men, and from the illustration you could see that they've been walking a long time, and one of the black men had his hand in his pocket, and you could see his fingers coming out of the pocket, and it says, I done lost the lunch. And I was kind of just like, what the fuck? Like, I think that picture in their bedroom kind of like and I think again, the connotation was, this is where the fuck you sleep. Why do you have this random picture? And I knew it was racist. Like, immediately I was like, this is racist. I wasn't able to articulate all the ways in which it was racist, but I knew that this was racist and extremely problematic. And I think, honestly, it kind of rested on the fact that this is their bedroom. This is where you and your husband be intimate and shit, and this is what you have. You have some sort of like a nostalgic anti-black ass painting or some shit in your room. It just seemed very strange to me, but at the same time, it wasn't something where I was like, I'm gonna go hard, because at that point I was not there in my politics. I wasn't there. So after seeing that picture, I was kind of just like, well, that's real. And I know that even though it happened years ago, it's something that has always stuck with me. Like, you hear me telling the story. This is from when I was 19 years old. That was almost 7 years ago, honestly. Almost 7 years ago. I'm over here kind of like, the fuck? You know? Just not sure of how, like, you know, how any white person could be like, I have my daughter's black friend coming into the house. And then I think even in ways, even me saying that statement, in terms of what I was thinking when I was there, it was more so I was like, damn, these white folk don't even see me. But I didn't even think about it like that. I didn't even think about the fact that these white folks couldn't see me. I was more caught up in the fact that these white folks are out here with all this racist shit in their house. And even though I told people, it was kind of always in jest. It was supposed to be a funny thing that these white people had all these black, exploitative ass fucking figurines and things in their house. And I don't think up until very recently, within like the last 2-3 years, I actually started seeing that shit as like extremely problematic, and a memory that I held with myself for so long, because I think in ways I was really traumatized. I really was. It really did fuck with me. Not to mention the fact that during that same time, their parent had invited me to a dinner at their uncle's house, and I was down, and I went, and I was the only black person there. And I remember in the middle of dinner, somebody said something nigger, and the way that they said it was just so loud and just so brash. And I remember in that moment just not even acknowledging, just kind of keeping my face at my plate and just trying to look around for things to occupy my hands and just look busy, because I felt all these white people looking at me. I felt all these white people making me feel like, what you gonna say, nigga? What you gonna do? And it was very traumatic and very violent, but in that moment I knew I had to laugh it off and just keep going. But, you know, as I learn, as I get older, there's shit that I'm gonna speak on that perhaps the time frame ain't right to you. Perhaps the timing is a little off, a little askew. But I think I didn't have time to prepare for being racially assaulted. I didn't have time to prepare to see all this Jim Crow ass remnants in someone's fucking home that I was going to be spending time in. I didn't have any time to prepare for being called a nigger, or for having niggers shouted at me at a damn dinner table. I didn't have time to prepare. So in ways, it's kind of hilarious that when I outed Victoria and her family as being racist, that when I said my piece, she was so upset. She was so willing to rewrite history because it didn't fit in with how she was feeling at the moment, or how she was feeling perhaps about her being a white person and her being racist. And it hurt my feelings, obviously, to know that I had experienced these things, but this white person was hell-bent on telling me first, no you didn't, and second, that I was the racist for bringing these things up. And it really fucked with me for a lot of reasons. But I want to say, it's also like, when you think about white supremacy, a lot of the things you experience aren't the way that you experience them. And I think that is the bigger conversation that needs to be had, instead of white people feeling bombarded by the fact that people are now knowing that they're racist, or now knowing that they've done something fucked up and racist. And instead of trying to put the onus on me to be speaking up as a 19-year-old surrounded by white people, why can't the onus be on you to remind yourself that when you're in attendance with other black folks, or you invite black people to your house, that perhaps it's not a setting where you should be fucking blatantly racist, you know? Perhaps. But I think the other thing was how many people were kind of like reaching out and trying to make it seem like they knew the situation. And the weirdest thing is, this is obviously a situation that happened between me, Victoria, her family. And for some reason, some other folks decided to chime in and try to, like, you know, make me, like, trying to just in ways legitimize or trying to get me to understand how I could have misconstrued. And it's just so invalidating, because if someone says this XYZ happened to me, it's never my place to try to make it seem less traumatic or less harmful. That's not my place. I think my place in that is, let me try and talk to this person as a person. Let me try to see where they're at and what they need and what I can give to them, instead of my fucking whack ass advice that they don't even fucking want. I don't know. I think in that situation, though, I also want to say, I don't think I really thought about ever saying anything to Victoria about it. And even when I did say something, even when I did call her out and her family, it was never on some shit where it's like I'm trying to walk you through or process with you about this situation. To be quite honest, I'm quite selfish with my energy in this point in time, so I don't have space to be trying to talk to somebody from 7 years ago about how they were racist. But I did have space to talk about the trauma that I had went through and that I wanted to let other folks know happened to me by way of this person and their family. And perhaps in the future, maybe someone who's friends with them would be like, you know what? You did do some shit, or your family did do some shit, or I have been affected by some shit that you have done. Because I think sometimes when we speak up, when we say some shit, we find that we're not alone. And I think that that's also part of it. Is me speaking out was more so to kind of have other folks like create a dialogue with me about what it is to be a survivor and a victim of racism. What it is to call out some people years the fuck later and have people be mad at you over the fact that you're unwilling to carry that shit any longer. On your own, at least. So this video is just kind of letting folks know that if you do go through trauma, if you are a survivor of trauma, a survivor of just white supremacy, which you are if you still alive, nigga. But I just want y'all to know, get comfortable. Get comfortable, make videos. Get comfortable, write. Get comfortable, sing. Get comfortable, say whatever the fuck you want to say. And be real about, you know, how something affected you. But I want you to, like, feel comfortable in opening up your fucking mouth and saying what you need to fucking say, because I find that when we're breaking silence, we're breaking barriers and we're breaking boundaries between people, and that's so important. And I think it's also so important to recognize that it's okay to say that people mistreated you, and then it's okay to say that it hurts, and it's okay to be sad about it still and not be in a place where you can really, you know, kind of let it out. But I think if you're able, write it down. If you're able, make a video, save it for yourself. Don't show nobody. Show maybe one person. Maybe show your best friend. Call your best friend. Talk about it. Whatever you need to do to kind of process and vent this shit out to where you feel like catharsis is going to happen, or catharsis comes to fruition. I think that's mainly what I was trying to say, was that I think if you go through something, you deserve to say what you went through, and you deserve to have support and care, and you deserve to have people believe you. So, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Take care. Traumatized by someone, if someone brought trauma into your life, if you experienced trauma at the hands of another person, I don't think there's ever a time where it's wrong to be discussing that, and I don't think that there's any time limit for when you can be processing trauma. And I feel like, unfortunately, because of ahistorical bullshit and the ways that people process trauma or are taught not to, my timeline doesn't matter. My processing and the ways in which I needed time to heal and process and grow wasn't taken into account. And I feel like it's something that, in ways, I think a lot of people can relate to, but I think at the same time, a lot of people perhaps could be shaming themselves about not talking about a certain situation. So when I was processed trauma, that contributes to our culture of silence and our culture of just propriety, respectability, and I feel like I want to share this because it was something that happened to me and something that I spoke my truth at a time that made sense for me, but because of white supremacy. 17? I was young. I was really young. I don't want to say I was 17 though. I want to say perhaps I was 19. And it was about to be my 20th birthday, to be quite honest. And I believe so, yeah. I was 19. I had a friend. Her name was Victoria. And her and I... Hi. So this is a video that I wanted to make a little while ago, but I just didn't have the space to really just process everything. But this is more so, I think the point of this video is to hammer home that no matter when it was or who it was by, that if you were trying